So today we just have a small update, a small Q&A from our seasonal leaderboard team. So yeah, welcome guys. Thank you for coming. But let's first jump into those introductions. Oh my God, interactions. Introductions before we dive into the nitty gritty and the fun stuff, right? So yeah, welcome back to those players who haven't heard of you guys before. Who are you and what do you do at Warner Brothers Games Boston?
I'll go first. Hey everyone, my name's McPivot. I'm a game designer here on Game of Thrones Conquest and resident spreadsheet junkie. I primarily focus on the economy, as well as some of this life cycle stuff, as well as just kind of helping improve systems and workflow processes behind the scenes for designers.
Cool, thank you. Guy?
Right. So, hey everybody, I'm that guy. I'm a product manager over here at WB Games Boston. I deal a lot with the event side of stuff, and looking at a lot of data and testing stuff and trying to create new event ideas.
Awesome. Thank you. I realized I didn't press start the event, so everyone's here anyway, so it works out. Awesome. Thank you. And before we go further, how would you guys explain what War of the Kings, aka the seasonal leader board event is?
So what we wanted to do with War of the Kings was we wanted to give most of our oldest players something more engaging to do in between, like the big moments that we've had before, which were merge and take your claim. So we created this to be an extended amount of competition after seeing a lot of feedback that people liked from our Elder KVK tournaments that we did. I don't quite remember. Beckpivot, do you remember, or Tabris, do you remember what that tournament was called? The first one?
Oh God. Oh, it was another war of something. It was like shoot.
Yeah.
It was the War of Kings.
War of the Eight Kings.
War of the Eight Kings. That's what it was. Yeah.
So based on that, and we saw that a lot of wider kingdom versus kingdom competition seemed to be something that the players enjoyed. So we wanted to do something like that on a more extended and constant level. So that's why we created this event.
Awesome. Thank you. That's very detailed. McPivot, do you have anything additional to add?
No, I think that guy nailed it.
Sick. So now that we got the basics out of the way, how did the last War of the Kings event fare? Not War of the Eight Kings. How did the last War of the Kings event fare on the developer side? I found while going through player feedback that they had some suggestions of improvement, but there was an overall positive reaction to the new edition.
Yeah, I thought it was very promising. It seems like people really got into, the sort of spirit of competition of things. And, like you said, I think we learned a lot, both from running the events and also just from reading all the feedback and suggestions from the surveys that went out. So, I think it went well. It seemed like rewards went over well with players too, which is cool. So happy to see that.
Woo! Guy, do you have any additional thoughts?
No, Big Pivot got everything right. I think, it went just second that it went well, and that, the surveys also seem to bear that out.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing is that do you guys think that we reached our intended goal with the War of the King event in terms of rewards, and we're basically doing what we set out to do?
Yeah, I think as a foundation of what we want to do, I think we hit it. I think sort of embracing that indirect competition that kind of comes from the Kingdom ranking leaderboards sort of scratches a competitive itch for folks, which is really cool. So I'm really excited to see how we build on it in the future.
Excellent. I'll go on to our next question. And I know this, and you two know this, but I'll ask for players. How did player input impact the stake your claim and merge pairing process that players saw in the last months of migration?
Yeah, so player input is very important to us. Like we have our, we said before, we have our own metrics that we look at for pairings, but we don't know all of the nitty gritty for every interaction between the kingdoms. So when we release stuff and get a little bit of feedback from players, it's always helpful to see things that we might have missed. And in looking at the pairings and how we dealt with it in the last month of happening, we took the feedback very quickly to heart, and because of some other factors that came in, it allowed us to make a bunch of changes that I think worked out in everybody's favor.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I think we can kind of see the high level, we can track our stats, right? We can see how people performed in the events and stuff, but I think players, especially player input, gives us a good idea of sort of the pulse of some of the kingdoms, which we can't always see.
Right.
So that is a metric that we take very seriously. And so, I would consider player input to be insanely important to all this stuff.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we can't we can't be in the nitty gritty of all the kingdoms that we're doing at all times, just the pure culture and that changes from kingdom to kingdom. And there's only so much data that can tell us. So I'm really glad you guys are looking at the surveys and taking people's opinions into consideration when, going into stake your claim and merge 4 months of migration. Cool. So on to our next question, because, we're talking about changes and players' input and all that fun stuff. What changes can players expect to see with this next season's seasonal leaderboards? So both in Discord and in our surveys, players were interested in seeing some other events added to the mix.
Yeah, so when so first big thing right off the bat is the length. So the previous season we ran was only 2 months, and that was mainly because we didn't have it fully ready for when we wanted to release it. So we ran it on a shortened time frame. This one will be starting this week and will be running for 3 months until the end of May. And that is the full timeline that we expect all future seasons to run for, and that is the full timeline that we want. We want to base all the stuff around for the future. So that's the first big change. The second big change that we're going to be doing is based on the surveys that we sent out in January, that we saw players wanted more events. So we asked, what kind of events would you guys like? So we are going to be adding about 4 new events to the milestone list. So we're adding, let me see. We're adding Feast of Cakes and Pies, The Great Hunt Part 1 and The Great Hunt Part 2, and The Stranger's Eyes. All 4 of those events will now be made into milestone events for the seasonal leaderboards.
Ooh, excellent. Pivot, do you have anything additional to add?
No, I think that guy nailed that.
That guy nailed that. I love that.
That's gonna be my slogan,
And I'd like to mention too, is that events adjust and change season by season. So just because these events are being added doesn't mean more things can be added in a future seasonal leaderboard, right? Based on the arc and what time of year it is and etc.
Correct. And also, it doesn't. When I said that these are getting added, we're not removing any of the other ones.
Right.
All the current events. So Breach, Total Power, Lord of Light, War for the Throne. Those are all still going to be milestone events. We're just adding more events to the milestone event list, as well as we will be making a version of Prop from Chaos. I forgot to mention the Prop from Chaos will also be running during this time, and also. Since we have an odd number of kingdoms this time, we can't exactly have everybody paired up nicely for War for the Throne. So during those weekends, there would be some people getting left out with Rebellion, but don't worry. Just because you're having Rebellion does not mean you will be shorted on copper stars or seasonal points. You will be getting points for Rebellion that match basically the in between what you would get for War for the Throne.
It's like a bye week in the NFL, you know?
It's like, write that down. Awesome. Cool. So now that we're reaching kind of the end of our Q&A, how can players continue to get involved with future development of Game of Thrones Conquest? You mentioned one thing or another thing, and I'll mention things too, but I want to hear what you guys think.
So, like, one of the most direct ways that you can get involved is by, participating in whatever surveys we send out. Those are very big and very important to what we take in as, player feedback. So survey.
Yeah, no. Surveys, jumping on Discord, especially that gameplay suggestions. I know I can see you guys putting suggestions in the stage chat. That doesn't help because it's not very detailed. So if you guys want to jump into hashtag gameplay suggestions, very useful for us figuring out what we should focus on next. Pivot, do you have anything additional to add to that?
No, I just, I would echo the same thing. I think, like, especially with this upcoming season, like, player feedback was a huge part of some of our decision making, right? So, like y'all were saying, like, filling out surveys, Discord participation, council participation, right? All these things are great. We take all that feedback and listen to it, good or bad, right? So.
And last but not least, is there anything that you guys can foretell for future seasonal leaderboards or months of migrations that you can tell players now? A little sneak peek into the far future.
Yeah. So I can tell you one thing about the month of migration. The next month of migration is that it will happen in June. Like, that's basically the only hard thing I can tell you right now, because obviously, these kingdoms just got spun up. Literally, one of them a pair of them just spun up today. So we definitely want to see how these kingdoms now, the communities eke out and how they survive. And then we will see what to do going forward.
Excellent. Pivot, do you have anything to add?
No. I mean, like, I think, like, we probably have some, like, internal hypothesis of how competitive some of the kingdoms are, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how they play out this season. I guess, like, what I would say is, we continue to create this great foundation that we can sort of build off of and play off of. And, so far it's been primarily taking events that you know and love and weaving them into our system. And, maybe we'll add and build stuff on top of that in the future. But yeah, stay tuned.
Thank you guys so much. That's all we have for our Q&A today. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us and listen to players' concerns. And basically talking about seasonal leaderboards as a whole. I mean, we've made so many adjustments based on the feedback that we've received in surveys, on Discord, with our ambassador program. So thank you guys for coming and talking to us and giving us a little bit of light into the development process and things that are happening.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.